Everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you very much for joining our Statement of Purpose workshop today. My name is Anas Akbar Ali, and I'm an Education USA advisor here at our Islamabad office. A very special thanks to our speaker, Reaz Mehdi, for joining us and leading the session today. We're delighted to have him here with us. Before I formally introduce and hand over to Reaz, I would like to take a moment to share a bit about who we are and what we do. This is specifically very important for those of you who are joining us for the first time today. So please bear with me while I touch on some of the programs and services that we are offering here at USEFP and Education USA Pakistan. So about Education USA, Education USA is a global network under the US Department of State comprising over 425 international student advising centers in more than 175 countries. We are your official source of US higher education, and we provide accurate, comprehensive, and current information about opportunities to study at accredited post-secondary institutions in the United States. We are available to students who need support. And just give me a second. So sorry, excuse me. Yeah. We're able to offer support to students or advice throughout Pakistan through email, call, or in-person meetings. Please visit our website, www.educationusa.pk, to register for our free services. In Pakistan, Education USA is based at the United States Educational Foundation in Pakistan, which also hosts the Fulbright mission in the country. USEFP promotes mutual understanding between the people of Pakistan and the people of the United States through cultural and educational exchange with offices in Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi. Other than advising, USEFP also has a programs department that administers fully funded programs, including the Fulbright Scholarship. You can find all of this information on our website, www.usefp.org. And finally, along with the programs department, USEFP also has authorized prometric testing centers in Lahore, Karachi, and Islamabad. We're also very happy to announce that the 2025 Fulbright Scholarship Program is now open for Pakistani applicants. Please keep in mind that the application deadline for this cycle is February 28, 2024. Now, I would like to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Reaz Mehdi. Reaz recently joined the U.S. Embassy Islamabad as an economic officer after having served abroad at our embassies and consulates in Turkey, Lebanon, Morocco, and Senegal over the past decade. He was born and raised in the Washington, D.C. area and also completed most of his schooling over there. He's a U.S. State alum thanks to the Fulbright's Research Scholar Program, with which he studied how Bangladeshi children in street situations met their survival needs. And a very small fun fact about Reaz is that he loves world cuisines, and he's excited to sample and try all the delicious food in Pakistan in the next 2 years. Without any further ado, I will now request Reaz to begin his talk, and I would just like to let everybody know that we have a Q&A chat box feature for you guys. So if you have any questions, please use that, and we'll be able to answer all of your questions at the very end. Over to you, Reaz.
Anis, thanks for that kind intro, and thanks to this wonderful crowd. I think we have over 140 participants right now. So thank you all first for taking your time this afternoon to learn more about the Statement of Purpose, the U.S. higher education application process. This is really a topic that I'm passionate about because even though I've been in the workforce for a while, I do remember the student days quite clearly and quite vividly. And I strongly want to assist and guide the next generation of students who wish to come visit the United States as students. So again, thank you for your interest. We hope this session will provide you plenty of practical, hands-on knowledge that you can apply in your future applications, whether it's to a university application or whether it's for a different type of US exchange program. So Anis, let's move forward to the statement of purpose. We could move forward one slide.
Do you want me to move to the next slide, or is this fine?
Sure. I think we can move to the following slide. Great. So as we cover this session, I think there are a couple themes that I want to begin with. One is as you explore your options for study in the US, it's really, really important to know first what you want out of your academic journey, and then two, what can the US educational system offer that aligns with your interests. So one of the most important things to do is to actually visit very specific university program websites and do your research. Again, every application may have a different application requirement, a statement of work, or sorry, a statement of purpose, a personal statement. So it's quite important to do your research. You know, I would give yourself at least 6 months ahead of time to do this process well, because you'll want to um, have multiple drafts, multiple outlines, and plenty of time to edit and receive feedback, whether it's from your peers in class, whether from your mentors or your teachers or professors or instructors. You'll want plenty of time to do research and know exactly how to hone your statement of purpose. So we'll move on to the next slide. All right. This goes without saying, especially in the age of generative AI and text. The statement of purpose has to be your own work. It's truly an opportunity to express yourself in the written word, and show yourself to be a unique candidate for a given program or course of study. So certainly do not plagiarize. It's quite easy for admissions staff to see when something is copied verbatim. There's quite a few software applications where um, the admission staff can actually run your statements of purpose through to check for plagiarism or copies. We could go to the next slide. All right, this is just, you don't have to read this actual slide, but this is from Princeton University's graduate school applications webpage. Actually, I'll tell you a personal story. I actually applied to Princeton for undergrad. It was my number one choice. I did not get in, but I still did okay in life. Um, so you'll see that every school has a very specific set of instructions, and this should help guide you in your in crafting your statement of purpose. One bit of advice that I'd recommend is, as you're doing your research about specific programs that you're interested in, you can keep a list of, or a spreadsheet of, for instance, when I applied to undergrad, I think I applied to 12 schools. And I kept a tab of each program in school and each of the requirements that each application would require. Some programs required supplemental statements, statements on diversity, inclusion. So make sure you actually prepare a complete application, and the statement of purpose is normally the most important piece of that puzzle. Anis, we could go to the next slide. Okay, this kind of goes back to that main point, that main theme of doing your homework and really knowing why you're applying to a particular program. In that there are multiple different components in each university application. Um, so that includes the personal statement, which is distinct from the statement of purpose. Um, all right, we can move on to the next slide. Excellent. So I think this is essentially the heart of this session, is asking yourself these critical questions. Um, if you can't answer these questions for yourself, you may need to do a lot more research before you apply to a given program, and reevaluate, why you're pursuing a course of study. It can't just be, my mom wants me to be a doctor or a lawyer. It really has to come from your individual passion, and what up until this point in your academic career, what has been leading you to this point to direct you to a given course of study in the United States, in Pakistan, or somewhere else in the world. You'll see in US culture, the most important thing is to be extremely specific in written communication. These statements of purpose are normally very concise. Normally you'll have about a page, maybe 500 words, 500 to 750 words. You'll have to be extremely specific in that limited space. And it should really come again from your passions, from every point in your academic career that has led you to applying for higher study in the United States. So again, basic questions. What are your future goals? What experiences have you drawn from in a very specific academic field? And what specific research programs do you wish to undertake? And what new knowledge do you wish to create by pursuing a very specific course of study in the United States? We can go on to the next slide. All right. Again, this is still very much the core of our session here today, is when you do write a statement of purpose, you should have all of this information sort of outlined in your mind and incorporate it creatively into the statement of purpose. So again, do you have a track record in conducting original research? What are your publications? Where have you done internships? Where have you worked? Which leads you to be a strong candidate in a given course of study. Again, a lot of programs value not just the geographic diversity that you bring as an international student, they want to see how you can contribute to a higher course of study as a practitioner. So again, many higher level courses of study have mid-career professionals, people who have spent years in the workforce and want to reach that pinnacle in their career with a higher education credential. So one of my bits of advice, actually to myself first, is, experience really, really matters. So the statement of purpose is a chance to creatively document your experience, to express your passions in a field of research. But again, if you don't have a lot of specific information that covers your research, your prior internships and employment, and then particular professors that you are following in a US graduate program, then I would reconsider and take some more time before you apply to a given program. I'm telling you all of this because this is what they told me. I remember I was, I think, a junior in my third year in undergrad, and I was very excited about a fifth year program where I could have gotten my master's in the same university faculty. So I went to visit the graduate level program of my school, and they just told me, like, why are you here? You haven't done anything with your life. Like, just go away and come back, in a few years, because I had nothing to contribute to that graduate level study program because I hadn't been out working, applying my knowledge from undergrad in internships, in entry level fields. I hadn't done much original research. And so they told me even before I applied, they said you're not going to get in. So that was a rude awakening to how competitive some graduate programs are and how competitive this application process can be. My biggest bit of advice as you think of higher level study is, do you have a very, very specific, narrow area of research? Because that's what higher academia often is. Are you aiming to be the world leader in, interpreting a specific subset of, Egyptian hieroglyphics. Like it's literally that specificity is what these programs want in your statement of purpose. Anis, we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, and so we'll see some practical examples in these slides about how to write good and bad statements of purpose. Okay, so this is a good example. Actually, this might not be a good example. Anis, is there another part to this slide?
Yes, I just updated it. Can you see
Oh,
it?
thank you. Oh, wait. Yeah, we got the nice green check. So this basically answers, the who, what, when, where, why. It's explaining, a very specific professor under whom this student is working, and very specific activities under this professor, and why these particular sets of research are important in the field of biophysics. Again, this can be very intimidating, but if you have been following a course of study that's quite specific, then you'll have no problems in answering the very specific who, what, when, where, and why. We can move to the next slide. Yeah, so this is very important because the admissions committee will want to know why you want to pursue a course of study at their university in a particular department, faculty, and program. So again, it's extremely important to define a specific reason behind your studies. This is a bad example. This is just stating very basic facts about oneself, which is great, but this really won't explain sort of your passions and long-term aspirations to pursue a very narrow, specific course of research and study. This is more like what we call explaining truisms. Like these are things that, of course, people can see this from your CV. They don't need to see this on a statement of purpose. We can go to the next slide. All right, this is a much, much better example. This is again explaining as a teacher, this shows that the applicant was teaching. So it's sort of explaining through the course of this person's experience how he or she came to a research question that's driving him or her to pursue this course of study. And I would encourage you all to, instead of saying, oh, I am just, I am a teacher. No, you could say as an active teacher, this is something that's come across in my daily practice as a scholar or practitioner, and this is what's driving me to a particular question. All right, we can move to the next slide. And this is again going back to that very first slide of doing your homework. Are you applying to a US university because you came across a brilliant paper in a very specific field of study, and that you've tagged that professor's name on LexisNexis or any other scholarly database that you have, and you can't wait to serve as a research assistant under the guidance of this particular US scholar? That's the best way to impress the admissions committee, because it shows that you value their faculty. You value their faculty's research in a very specific area of research. You've been citing their papers in your own research, and you look forward to their guidance and mentorship as you develop your career and your academic credentials. So This is an excellent example of citing a very specific scholar and summarizing their research and why it would connect to your course of study. And we can move on. Yep, just as we said, we can move on from this to just mention specific faculty members. But mention them sincerely, not just mention their names randomly, but mention how they have connected to your course of study, and how you actually came across their work. Again, the statement of purpose should show your genuine interest in a very specific course of study. It should be a natural progression, how you naturally came across a scholar or faculty member while doing your own research here in Pakistan. We can move on to the next slide. This is great. Again, going back to truisms, if you say, I am dedicated to the field of social work, that's great, but that doesn't really explain much to the admissions committee. If you can show how you are active in social justice through an ongoing volunteer activity, for instance, this applicant wrote about their volunteering at a local soup kitchen to feed the poor, showing how your actions are leading to your course of study, your volunteer actions, your actions in your community. That's the best way to impress the admissions committee with specific examples from your life. And we can move on to the next slide. Yes, this might seem obvious, but please do not please do not use the same statement of purpose for each uh, university to which you're applying. Every university program has a different set of strengths. They often advertise their particular strength or focus on their public website. So make sure you sort of reflect that in your statement of purpose to show that you value their particular program, their particular department or faculty, and make sure you again check for spelling errors. That should be pretty obvious, but you can never ever have enough editing or peer editing done. Um, I think I can't really emphasize the last point enough that you should actually share your statement of purpose with as many people as possible, your friends, your closest mentors and teachers, who can give you very honest critiques. Because even if you think you've written your best work, it might not come across well to other readers. Um, Going back, Anis introduced my Fulbright experience. I remember my Fulbright, the first time I received Fulbright feedback on my statement of purpose. It was very tightly written. I had spent almost 2 weeks writing it. I was almost in tears because the fellowship mentor just, crossed every line out and basically tore apart my first draft. And I was so thankful that she did that. Because even though I was very passionate about my research question, about understanding how certain street children survive in Bangladesh, um, my initial draft was not easy to understand for the average reader. So again, you should go into your statement of purpose with a lot of passion about your very specific experiences, but make sure multiple other people read it and give you honest, direct critiques and constructive criticisms to clarify your writing. Um, we can move on to the next slide. So this follows another theme. Don't repeat information that's in another part of your application. The statement of purpose, one way I look at it is that you have your CV. that will be part of your application. But what you're trying to explain in your statement of purpose is between the lines of your CV. What's not written, you know, between all of your experiences and academic credentials. It's really explaining a bit of your personality too. So don't repeat, you know, your GPA or other inane things that are written in other parts of your application. You're really telling a story that shows a logical progression of all of your experiences and then your passion in where you want to take that level of scholarship to the next level of professionalism. So again, it seems pretty obvious, but you should not be repeating things that are already in your CV or elsewhere in your application. Next slide, please. Again, I think, oops, there we go. Yes, again, going back, we mentioned plagiarism is a big no-no. Also, humility is an important to-do. Don't stretch the truth. Be very specific about your personal examples. This is really not a place to show off. It's a place to show who you truly are and who your actual academic achievements, how they've been reflected in your life through your volunteer activities, through your club activities, and through your published research. So be very specific about what you've accomplished. Be proud of it, but don't show off and don't stretch the truth. There are hundreds and thousands of other very impressive candidates like yourself. So a bit of humility and a bit of specificity and truth go a long way to impressing an admissions committee. And I like these last points. These are, again, truisms and cliches. Everybody wants to expand their knowledge. Everybody wants to make the world better. Don't repeat these things. Show how you do these things, how you are expanding your knowledge, how you are making the world a better place, and how you are passionate through your research and studies. We can go to the next slide. Yep, and this is from an expert. I'll summarize this for you. It's what we've been saying the whole session. Don't explain truisms or things that are obvious about yourself or straight from your CV. You want to demonstrate how you've applied your knowledge and passions in practice. That's what makes the statement of purpose strongest. We can go on to the next slide. Yeah, this basically covers the same. We can move on from this one as well. This is really interesting. My best friend, he changed his undergraduate major 4 times. I thought he was crazy, but some people actually have multiple passions. Unfortunately, we only have a limited amount of time to graduate from an academic program, but it's completely natural if you're let's say, studying economics in undergrad, and you want to study something completely different, but at a graduate level. Maybe something really important happened in your life that inspired you to switch fields. And so that's a great chance to actually explain the the leap in logic. So if you're studying economics in undergrad and you're going into the fine arts for graduate school, it's a great chance to explain what happened in your life to make that leap. So don't be worried about changing fields completely. If there isn't a completely logical progression on your CV, but if you can actually explain your passion and how it's leading to a new field of study, that's okay too, and that's completely normal. We can move on to the next slide. Oof. All right. So we'll keep this up just so you can see. I think this is a really good example um, of how you can actually make a statement of purpose, reflect your passions, and how you've actually formed a core burning question um, in the course of your studies, and that you want to take to another level. Um, this is sort of, if I read this, if I were younger, I'd be quite intimidated. This is a very hard science example in theoretical physics. We don't all have to be physicists here, but it just shows how somebody has a natural curiosity, and it's developed their burning passion to take it to another level of research, and how this particular example on the bottom has found a very specific home to take their level of research to the next level, because they know that the physics department at Yale University does a very specific set of activities and research in high energy experiments. That just shows that the candidate, the applicant, knows exactly what he or she wants out of the graduate study, and how their previous research has been leading them to this course of study. So again, it's a scary field. Maybe there are many physicists here in the audience, maybe not, but this is sort of a good example that brings everything we've been talking about together in a practical, written statement of purpose. So again, I would encourage you all to read, especially the bottom section of this slide. Um, this is a very impressive and very specific way to write your statement of purpose. We can go on to the next slide. Ah, I actually really like this example too on the top. Um, it's interesting when maybe some of you are creative writers. Normally, we want to write in complete sentences. We want to eliminate the passive voice. We want to eliminate extraneous prepositional phrases and keep sentences tight and crisp. This is an interesting way to begin uh, a paragraph. Deficits, war, scandal. That's not a complete sentence, um, but it shows the applicant's analytical mind, because it summarizes what he or she is seeing in current events. I think that's a really impressive way to start, even though it's not grammatically the best um, sentence. It really shows an analytical view of this person's thinking. Um, one other point, I was recalling on an earlier slide, we mentioned um, be sure to proofread, make sure there's no spelling errors, no punctuation typos. Another thing I would strongly recommend, especially to the audience here, maybe in Pakistan, is that um, at least to me as an American English speaker and writer, it's sort of annoying when we see British spelling. Uh, please try to use American English in your applications to US schools and programs. In the United States, we fought a whole Revolutionary War to free ourselves from all those extra U's and S's that British English uses. So do try to switch your spell check to US English. It is sort of, even though you could be writing a beautiful statement of purpose, if it annoys the admissions committee, that doesn't help your chances of progressing in that program. So definitely use American spelling. It really shows that you value uh, US academic traditions. Um, we can move on to the next slide. All right, here's another a good and a bad example. The reason, again, the bottom paragraph is good is because it explains the actions you've been taking so far in your life, and what's actually motivates you, what you're passionate about, and how you've put that motivation and knowledge into action. For instance, helping other people, tutoring people. Um, that's really wonderful. It could be in any field. It doesn't have to be in math or science or English or literature. This is a really wonderful example, I think, on the bottom that would resonate with a US admissions committee. All right, we can move on to the next slide. So I think this is an interesting example, um, because when using personal examples about your life, you might want to reserve the story aspect for your personal statement to explain who you really are as a person. Um, but if something in your life inspired a particular curiosity, for instance, on the bottom here, it says, my best friend was Pakistani. When I would eat dinner at her house, her family would tell me stories about partition. And this sparked my curiosity about the history and culture of Pakistan. So again, in the statement of purpose, they really want to know why you're interested in their program. So if there is a life experience that inspired that, then go ahead and share it in your statement of purpose. Otherwise, I would recommend keeping the story time for your personal statement. All right, we can move to the next slide. This goes back to doing your homework and knowing exactly what a particular program offers you, and then explaining to the admissions committee, why you want to work with professors Jonas and Monson and Lilly. And if you can tie their specific research to your course of study, very impressive. That would really impress the admissions committee. They know that you want a specific program, you value their specific research. Again, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to be extremely specific in your application, in your statement of purpose. We can go on to the next slide. Oh, we're at the end. Wow, time flies. Um, Anis, we're very open to questions. I know I went kind of fast, and there were multiple slides full of text. I normally don't like to focus on so much text, but I think for this particular session where we're focusing on statements of purpose, it's really important to give the audience clear examples. So I think we're open for questions.
Yeah, I think we have a couple of questions I could read out those to you, and maybe you could answer those.
Sure.
Is that okay? All right. So a lot of people are wondering about the difference between a personal statement and a statement of purpose. I think because a lot of the times some, admissions committee require you to submit a personal statement as well as a statement of purpose. So it'd be great if you could, differentiate between the two.
That is an excellent question. And often when you're reading the instructions for a given application, there are very specific things that the school is asking you to write in your statement of purpose versus your personal statement. Your personal statement is actually explaining who you are as a person. You can review your entire CV, and it might seem pretty boring. But if you focus on something, uh, or an example, for instance, from your athletic career or from your family life or from a travel experience, and how that particular experience explains sort of who you are as a person, that's really focused on yourself. The statement of purpose actually explains more of what's happening inside your mind on how a particular burning question, perhaps, or set of questions that you've pursued in your academic life are leading you to a very specific graduate course of study. So the statement of purpose is a much, much narrower and specific sort of logical progression that's academically focused, whereas your statement, your personal statement, should be free to show what you bring as a person to a particular program. Are you interested in social justice? Are you passionate about theater? Are you an athlete who loves competition? What has shaped you to be the person you are? What type of diversity do you bring to a program? Because remember, when the admissions committee is looking at hundreds and thousands of applications, they're literally bringing together a group of very special people, and that's often the hallmark of your education in the United States. It's not the coursework; it's the incredible people you meet, your classmates. So basically, explain in your personal statement why you're such an incredible, unique, special person, while being humble about your accomplishments.
Thank you. I also have another question that a lot of students had. So they were wondering about how important professional experience can be when it comes to, writing down your statement of purpose.
And I'll give you this perspective as somebody who did not have that much professional experience. When I did my particular course of graduate study, and I would say it really depends. If you're going into the hard sciences, it's really important to have some experience or just extremely high academic marks in in the sciences. If you're going into a broader social sciences field, you're going straight from undergrad to graduate study. It's more normal to have less experience. But again, your club involvements, that's experience. Your internships are experience. You don't need to have a 10-year career before entering a graduate program, but it's always very valuable to have you know, a couple years of practical experience where you've been doing some sort of analysis or some sort of written product in your given field. So it's such a catch-22. I really feel the pain because I remember when I was younger, to get an internship, you need experience. And it's sort of like, but how do you get experience without getting that internship? So it's a really challenging time for young professionals. But what I would actually say is, if you can't find your dream internship or experience in the US, we actually think any experience, any work is good work. Any job is a good job. It doesn't have to be some elite, prestigious internship or job experience. You can show how even working in retail or working in customer service, you learn so much about interacting with people. That's probably the most important experience because that shows that you would be a good teammate. So in the United States, we don't really favor, prestigious sorts of experiences. Just show with the opportunities you've been given so far in your life, how you've taken best advantage to build yourself as a person, as an academic, as a community member, and then share that in your statement of purpose and in your personal statement. It doesn't have to be the most prestigious job or experience. Thanks.
Thank you, Reaz. And I also do want to mention that although most programs do not really have a strict requirement, there are some programs, unfortunately, such as, a lot of different MBA programs that do require like 1 or 2 years of work experience. So when you're working on your applications, make sure that when you're shortlisting your schools, make sure that they make sure to just go through the application requirements. Also, I do have another question. So a lot of students were wondering what kind of writing format do students need to tap into? Does it does their do they need to write their statements in a way where they're developing a narrative, or does it need to be like very descriptive? What kind of narrative or what kind of writing format do they need to, tap into when they're writing their statement of purpose?
That's actually a very, very good question. Because you basically have a big blank square and you have to fill it. And it's basically free form. And it really depends on the particular program, but there often isn't very much guidance. You have a lot of freedom to develop your statement of purpose. Um, and it really depends again on the course of study. I like a more logical progression of sort of explaining what, what is the burning research question that brought me to a particular program, what's motivating me, and explaining why a particular program next would satisfy my academic curiosity and what next I would want to do with the knowledge that I gain from that program. So it should be a logical progression, colored with personal experiences, and then colored with specificity about the particular graduate program, but it should be sort of a logical progression and flow. Again, we like strong topic sentences followed by examples that support that topic sentence in each paragraph. We like active verbs. So if you see any form of the verb to be, it probably means that your sentence is too long. Uh, Use a syntax where there's subject, verb, object, and use transition phrases, however, nevertheless, etc. So use simple, flowing language, use a logical progression so that any average reader can understand what you're trying to say, and have many people read it over. The best advice I've ever gotten on writing anything is was from my ninth grade English teacher. She said, "Can you read out your statement? Can you read aloud your statement? And if you can read aloud what you've just written and it sounds normal, you can take breaths, it doesn't sound awkward, then it's good English. If you can't read it out loud and it makes you feel weird when you're reading it, you need to go back and simplify." That's the best advice I've ever gotten.
Thank you, Riaz. And a lot of students also were wondering about switching degree programs. So if somebody wants to switch degree programs, for instance, if they have a bachelor's in international relations or biology or chemistry, and now they want to, pursue a master's degree in, let's say, in arts or humanities or an MFA, and they don't have a lot of experience for that. So how could they use the statement of purpose to sort of, you know, comment on that and sort of justify this huge gap that they have, and how could they let the committee know that they would be able to thrive in this particular program as well?
I actually think those are the bravest applicants who jump from one field to the next. And it probably shows the committee that you as an applicant are a very creative thinker, a free thinker who's open to new experiences. So explain what sparked your curiosity to jump fields. I think in the US academic system, we love curiosity. So from somebody who's going, from economics or international affairs to a completely different field, it's really incredible. We would want to know why, and why in a really good sense, because that's a very big leap to take. It shows broad curiosity, broad passion, and so don't be afraid to explain what's taken you on this journey. Explain your journey. And I'm sure it'd be really, really interesting because I had a really boring journey going from undergrad to grad programs. But I can only imagine if you're going from one field to something completely different, there's probably a really good story behind it. So don't be afraid to share that.
Thank you. And one of our students was wondering about, noting down multiple advisors and their potential research areas in their SOP, and they were asking how could they do that? And is it advisable to, talk about multiple advisors and multiple, research areas that they have in their statements in general?
Yeah, I think multiple advisors only if it's you can link it very specifically to why you want to enter a particular program. So if Professor Smith is is doing one very specific course of study or is doing one very specific line of research, and Professor Jones is doing a totally different line of research, you probably want to stay focused on one professor or one academic. If there are multiple leaders in a given field of study that you're interested in, then feel free to cite multiple, principal investigators whose published research you have read. It would be even better if you cite an advisor and their specific published article that inspired you to follow them and want to be their student or their research assistant. So try to get as specific as possible. I would not say that listing more advisors is better. Um, just listing one and their particular published research and why that interests you.
Thank you so much. And unfortunately, we are out of time. We're just going to take one last question. And that is that should we explain any unforeseen circumstances that may have hindered our academic performance, or, how do they need to explain those unforeseen circumstances in their SOPs?
That's a great question. I think in American culture and US culture, we love the underdog story. We love to see how people overcome hardships. But we do not like to hear how people are victims. So if you have had challenges in your life and you have overcome and succeeded, that is a wonderful thing to explain in your personal statement. Um, in your statement of purpose, if you're trying to say why you received really bad marks one semester, um, because of maybe a family tragedy or an environmental tragedy, um, you know, you want to follow up and show, hey, after that horrible incident in my life, I, received, top marks the next semester or the next trimester. But I would uh, advise not to sort of publish victimhood. That's a very negative thing to show in US culture, but we love to see how you've overcome hardships. That would be my response.
Well, oh, I'm so sorry. I think my mic got muted for a second. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. Yeah, so I just wanted to thank Reaz for such an informative and engaging session. It was a pleasure listening to you. I am certain that our participants found the information and techniques very useful and insightful. And, if you have any questions about today's sessions or any questions about U.S. higher education in general, please reach out to your Education USA advisor and please register for our free advising services. And make sure to follow our EducationUSA social media pages to stay up to date. And thank you very much for joining and participating. Thank you, Reaz, for joining today's session and leading this workshop. It was a pleasure listening to you. We hope you all have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Good luck, everybody. Thank you.